Welcome to the narrative nest. It started with a letter. No return address. Just her name written in a shaky hand she hadn't seen in 22 years. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more twisted tales. Only on the narrative nest. The envelope had arrived on a Wednesday, a grey one, where the sky looked like wet concrete and the air carried the weight of rain it hadn't released yet. Clara Jensen had just returned from her shift at the county hospital, still in her pale blue scrubs, when she saw it sitting alone on the kitchen counter. Her mother, Eleanor, must have retrieved the mail earlier and left it there without a thought. Clara reached for it casually, and then froze. Her name was written in blue ink, not printed, not typed, written, and not in just any hand. It was the same crooked cursive that used to scrawl love notes across her high school locker. The same handwriting she'd once memorized with the devotion only first loves and buried griefs can inspire. It was Adam's handwriting, but Adam was dead. 22 years dead. She sat down slowly at the table, her legs shaky beneath her. The envelope was cream-colored, thick, the kind they used for wedding invitations or church ceremonies. She turned it over, hands trembling slightly. No stamp, no address, just her name, Clara Jensen, and nothing else. No one called her that anymore, not since the accident, not since the trial. She opened it. Inside, a single folded sheet of paper. No greeting, no date. You were right not to. Believe it. Come to Grange Hill. July 18th, room 217. That was it. No signature, no explanation. But she didn't need one, because Adam Blake had vanished on July 18th, 2003, because room 217 was the very hotel room where his body was found, and because Clara had never believed he killed himself, no matter what. The police said the next morning, Clara called out sick from work. It was the first sick day she'd taken in over 3 years. She packed a single overnight bag, locked her phone in her desk drawer, and told her mother she was going to visit an old friend from nursing school. Then she drove. Grange Hill wasn't on any map, not really. It was a forgotten town tucked into the folds of Northern California's foggy coastal forests, once a thriving logging village, now a whisper of a town with more memory than people. The Blake family had owned land there for 3 generations. Adam's grandfather had run the old mill before it shut down in the 80s. After that, people just left, except for the Blakes. They stayed, stubborn as roots. Clara hadn't been back since the summer Adam died. The motel was still there, the Grange Hill in 2-story brick building with chipped paint and fog-streaked windows, crouched at the edge of the towns. Single road like a secret someone forgot to bury. She parked across the street and stared at it for a full minute before stepping out. The woman at the front desk was unfamiliar, maybe in her early 60s, with tired eyes and a name tag that read Marlene. She didn't look up as Clara entered, checking in. The woman asked. Clara hesitated. Room 217. I think someone made a reservation for me. Marlene looked up at that, a long pause. Then, name. Clara Jensen. The woman typed something into an ancient-looking desktop computer. After a moment, she nodded. Double quotes, yup, you're on the list. Paid in advance. One night, no checkout time noted. Clara blinked. Who paid for it? Marlene didn't answer, just handed over a key. A physical one, brass, with a cracked plastic tag that read 217 in faded red numbers. Clara climbed the creaky stairs, every step groaning beneath her weight. She hadn't realized how quiet the town was until she was halfway up. No cars, number, wind, just the distant sound of gulls and the faint hum of something unseen, like electricity or memory. Room 217 was at the end of the hall. She unlocked it slowly. The room smelled like time, like old carpets and mildew and something else, something colder. The bed was made. The lamps were unplugged. The window was open a crack, letting in the fog like a ghost. Nothing looked different, and yet everything had changed. This was where they found Adam, in the bath, wrist slit, a bottle of whiskey on the counter, a note that said, "Tell her I'm sorry." Clara had never seen the note herself, only heard about it through whispers. Friends, neighbors, a cop who went to school with her father. Her parents had tried to shield her from the aftermath, but she was 17, and grief doesn't wait for explanations. She stepped inside, closed the door, then stood there in silence, letting the room speak. She moved slowly, like walking through a museum of someone else's pain. The bed, the sink, the mirror. She stared at herself, at the woman she'd become. A tired face, grey streaks in her brown hair, a hardness around the eyes she hadn't noticed before. That's when she saw it. A piece of paper, folded, tucked into the corner of the mirror's frame. She pulled it free with numb fingers. It was a photo. A Polaroid. Clara and Adam, sitting on the old pier at Hidden Lake, summer 2002, her head on his shoulder, his hand wrapped around hers. It wasn't a photo she'd ever seen before. On the back, in the same blue ink, "Not everything drowns." Her heart stuttered. That was what Adam used to say when she panicked. When she told him she was scared she'd lose him to the dark, that he'd leave her like her dad had left her mum, like people always did. "Not everything drowns, Clara," he'd whisper. "Some of us float." She sat down on the bed and tried to breathe. The floor creaked outside, softly, one footstep, then another. She stood quickly, peeking through the peephole. No one there, but when she opened the door, another envelope was waiting on the floor. Same handwriting, same ink inside. A hotel receipt from August 15th, 2003, 1 month after Adam died, paid in cash. Guest name, E. Jensen. Eleanor. Her mother. Her mouth went dry. Why would her mother have come here? And why had she never said a word? Clara's hands were shaking. She stuffed the envelope into her coat pocket and rushed down the stairs. The woman at the front desk was gone. The lobby was empty. The phone on the desk buzzed once, then went silent. Outside, the fog had thickened. It pressed in from all sides like wet wool, muffling her thoughts. Clara got in her car and started driving. No destination, just movement. Her mother had always hated Adam, that much was true. Said he was reckless. Said he was from a family of bad roots. That the Blakes had secrets buried under their cabin floors. But she never mentioned coming to Grange Hill after Adam's death. Clara drove past the old church, the shuttered school, the gas station with rusted pumps. Grange Hill hadn't just aged, it had rotted. There was something wounded in the air here, something unfinished. She turned left onto Hunter's Path, a gravel road that led into the woods. The Blake family cabin was still out there. Maybe someone knew something. Maybe someone had kept something buried. She reached the cabin 20 minutes later. The forest was thick and dripping. The sky still grey. The cabin was smaller than she. Remembered, peeling red paint, boards across the windows. The porch had half collapsed, but there was smoke rising from the chimney. Someone was inside. She parked, approached slowly. The door was ajar. "Hello," she called. "Is someone here?" Silence. She stepped inside. The living room smelled of firewood and damp earth. A single chair faced the fireplace, its back to her. Then a voice, "I knew you'd come." The chair turned. It was Caleb Blake, Adam's older brother. Older now, greyer, thinner, but unmistakable. Clara's breath caught. "Caleb, you shouldn't be here," he said. But his voice wasn't angry, just tired. "It's too late. Too late for what?" He didn't answer right away, just looked at her with something like pity or regret. "You got the letter," he said finally. She nodded. "You know he didn't write it, right?" That stopped her. "What?" "It's his handwriting, but not his words." She stared at him. "Then who?" "There are things you don't understand about that summer," Caleb said. "About what he found, what he saw, what we buried." She took a step forward. "Adam didn't kill himself, did he?" Caleb didn't move, didn't blink. "Come with me," he said. He stood, grabbed an oil lamp from the mantel, walked to the back door. Clara followed. They stepped into the forest. No trail, just trees and fog and the sound of their breath. He led her down a slope, past a crumbled stone wall, and then into what looked like a sinkhole. At the bottom was a hatch, metal, bolted, old. He opened it. A ladder led down into the dark. "Adam came here the night before he died," Caleb said. "He was chasing something. Something that's been here longer than any of us." Clara stared into the darkness. She couldn't see the bottom. "What is it?" she whispered. Caleb looked at her, and for the first time she saw fear, memory. He said, "That's what this place feeds on." Then he climbed down. Clara hesitated, then followed. The metal rungs of the ladder were slick with moisture. Clara gripped tightly, each step echoing down into the blackness below. Her breath grew shallower as the darkness closed in around her. Above her, the square of pale grey sky shrank until it disappeared entirely. She stopped when her feet touched solid ground, dirt, cold and slightly damp. The air smelled of rust and mildew and something else she couldn't name. Caleb struck a match and lit the oil lamp, its flame flickering against the curved stone walls. They were in a tunnel. It looked man-made, but old, very old. The stones were uneven, sealed with crumbling mortar. Roots had pushed through in places, gnarled like fingers clawing at the air. Clara looked around, disoriented. "What is this place?" Caleb stepped ahead, lamp held out in front of him. "My grandfather dug it. During the war, said it was a shelter, a fallout hideout. But he kept expanding it, even after the war ended. My father sealed it off after he died. Said some doors should stay closed." Clara followed him cautiously. "What does this have to do with Adam?" "Everything," Caleb said. The tunnel sloped downward, gently at first, then more steeply. The farther they went, the colder the air became. Clara noticed the walls were changing. Less stone, more earth. The smell, too, had shifted. No longer just decay and rot. There was something sweet underneath it, like flowers, but sickly, faintly rotting. Up ahead, Caleb stopped at a wooden door. It was tall, arched, and bound with iron braces that had begun to rust. A chain hung across it, but it was already broken. Snapped clean through. Caleb held the lamp higher. "This is where he came, the night before." Clara reached out and ran her fingers along the broken chain. Cold, brittle. Why would he come here? Because of what he found, Caleb said quietly. Or what found him? The door creaked as it opened. Beyond it was a small chamber, circular and silent. In the center sat a stone pedestal. Carved into the top was a perfect circle, a groove like something had once been cradled there. Something round, smooth. There were carvings on the walls, symbols Clara didn't recognize, lines, eyes, spirals. Clara stepped closer, the flame casting strange shadows behind her. This isn't just a shelter. Caleb shook his head. No, my grandfather didn't just dig. He was looking for something. Said it called to him. Said it was older than the town. Older than the trees. Said it whispered to him in dreams. And Adam, he came here by accident. He was trying to find me. I'd been gone for 2 days. Off the grid. Off everything. He found the hatch. Found this room. Caleb looked at the pedestal, then at her. He touched it. Clara stared. Touched what? Caleb didn't answer. Instead, he knelt beside the pedestal and pulled a cloth bundle from the hollow beneath. He unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a stone, black, perfectly round, smooth as glass. Clara stepped back instinctively. Something about it made her skin tighten. It's just a rock, she whispered. No, Caleb said. It remembers, and when you touch it, it shows you. Shows you what? He looked at her, his face pale and the lamp's glow. The truth, your worst one. She stared at him, her breath catching. Adam touched it, Caleb said, and afterward, he wasn't the same. He said he saw things he never told me. Things about you, about your mother, about that night. Clara shook her head. What night? You know which one. But she didn't, or she didn't want to. She took a step back toward the door. This is insane. You brought me down here to scare me. No, I brought you down here so you'd understand. Because I think someone wants you to. Clara froze. He held up a second envelope. Her name, same ink. She snatched it from him and tore it open. Inside, a photo. This time, not a memory. A surveillance still, dated 3 days ago. A figure standing outside her house in Sacramento. Wearing a hood, watching the windows. On the back, not everything stays buried. Her chest tightened. She looked at Caleb, who took this. I don't know. She stared at the stone. In his hand, a sudden wave of heat rolled through her chest. Panic, or maybe memory. You said it shows you things. She whispered. Caleb nodded slowly. Only if it wants to. She reached out. He didn't stop her. The moment her fingers touched the stone, the world vanished. Not darkness, but something else. A complete absence of sensation. A void, and then everything returned. Clara stood in a kitchen. Her kitchen. But it was 15 years ago. The wallpaper was still blue. The stove still avocado green. The air thick with the smell of burnt toast and summer rain. She heard voices, laughter. She turned and saw herself, young 16, laughing at something Adam had said. He stood at the sink, shirtless, sunburnt, hair damp from the lake. Then her mother entered, and the room changed, the joy drained. Clara saw it in her younger self, the shift in posture, the quick silence. Eleanor Jensen's presence filled the space like cold air. You need to leave, her mother said. To Adam, he smiled, nervous. We would just, I know what you would just. Clara watched, helpless. "I won't have your filth in my home," Eleanor hissed. Young Clara started to protest, but her mother snapped, "He's not one of us." The memory dissolved. Now a new scene, a bedroom, night. Clara's mother standing at the edge of the bed, whispering into a phone. She doesn't know. She can't. Pause. "I made sure he got the message. If he shows up again, I'll go to the police." Another pause. "He's not her future. He's not part of this family." Then silence. The vision shifted again. This time, Clara saw a road, wet, empty, a curve ahead, a silver sedan, a boy at the wheel, Adam, crying, and behind him lights, a second car. Following the sedan, slid, vanished off the side of the road, and the second car didn't stop. It paused, waited, then turned around and drove away. Clara gasped. Her body ripped away from the vision. She was back in the tunnel. She staggered, collapsing against the wall. The stone fell from her fingers, clattering to the ground. Caleb caught her. Easy. She was shaking. "He didn't kill himself," she whispered. "He was run off the road." Caleb nodded. "I know, my mother." "She's not who you think." Clara stood, breath coming fast. "I need answers." Caleb nodded. "You'll get them. But be careful. You weren't supposed to. Find this." None of us were. They climbed back up in silence. The air above felt thinner, colder. When they reached the surface, the sky was darkening. Late evening, Clara stepped out into the clearing and froze. Someone had been here. A cigarette still smoldered on the porch railing. Footprints in the dirt, deep. Recent Caleb saw them too. "Go," he said. "Back to town. Stay in the light." She didn't argue. By the time she returned to the motel, room 217's door was ajar. She stepped inside cautiously. The lamp was on, another envelope on the table. Inside, a note. "You touched it. You know now. Stay quiet, or he won't be the last." Beneath the note, a photo of Caleb, through a rifle scope. Someone had taken the picture from the woods. Clara sat down on the bed, her heart pounding. Someone was watching them. And whoever it was, they knew about the stone, about Adam, about everything, and they weren't done yet. She stared at the photo. Not everything stays buried, but maybe, just maybe, that's where some truths should stay. She didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. Clara sat at the small motel table. The photo of Caleb under the scope laid out beside the envelope, the warning note beside that. She didn't cry, she didn't panic. What settled into her? Bones instead was something colder resolve. If someone was threatening Caleb, it meant they were watching. If they were watching, it meant they were afraid of what she'd find next. She stared out the window. The fog still curled around the street lamps, like smoke. The town was dead silent, but every so often she felt that prickling at the back of her neck, like eyes she couldn't see. The room felt smaller than it had when she checked in. The walls felt closer. It wasn't the place. It was what she now knew. At 6:17 a.m., she left room 217 without checking out. The brass key jingled as she dropped it on the desk. No one was there. Not even Marlene. By 6:40, she was back on Hunter's Path, parking just before the trail split into the woods. The hatch would still be open. She didn't plan to go back down, they just wanted to make sure Caleb was safe. But the cabin was empty. The fire had gone out. The lantern was cold. The coffee mug she'd seen the night before sat on the table, still half full. She called his name once, then again, no answer. But something else caught her. RJ, a new set of footprints in the mud beside the hatch. Not hers, and not Caleb's boots. These were smaller, narrower, cleaner tread. They disappeared into the trees. Someone had been here since she left. Someone who didn't want to be seen. She turned back to the cabin, unsure what to do, and saw the message scratched into the window with a knife. You were warned. She swallowed hard. Her mind raced. Caleb was gone. Not answering his phone. Someone had left a surveillance photo of him, scoped like a target. And now this. She needed help. Someone who wasn't involved. Someone who knew Grange Hill, but not the Blakes, not her mother, not whatever secrets this town was rotting on. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number, she answered, heart hammering. Hello, silence. Then breathing, she waited. Then a voice hoarse, female, they took. Him? Don't go to the police. Clara went still. Who is this? You don't know me, the voice rasped. But I know you, and I know what your mother did. What are you talking about? I can't say more. They listen. Meet me at the greenhouse, the one on the old mill road, noon. Then the line went dead. The old greenhouse. Clara remembered it barely. She and Adam had once dared each other to sneak inside when they were kids. It had been abandoned even back then. Vines had choked the roof, and the walls were stained green with moss. She checked her watch. 7:12. She had 5 hours to kill and nowhere to go. Back in the car. She opened her glove compartment and pulled out the manila folder she'd brought along, a half-organized mess of photos, notes, and newspaper clippings from 2003. She hadn't meant to bring it. It had just ended up in the bag. She flipped to the photo of Adam's body. Police issue leaked years later during some internal scandal. She hated looking at it, but she forced herself now. The tub, the open wrists, the bloody water, the bottle on the sink, and something new she hadn't noticed before. A necklace, just visible beneath the surface. Thin chain, small charm. She zoomed in with her phone. It looked like a star. 5 points. Burned black with age, or maybe blood. She remembered it now. Adam had found it the week before he died. While hiking near the cliffs with Caleb, she remembered how he'd joked it looked Colt Y, and how he'd worn it every day afterward. Said it helped him sleep. The memory chilled her now. She slid the photo back into the folder and turned the key in the ignition at 11:58. She arrived at the greenhouse. It sat like a corpse at the edge of the tree line, glass shattered in places, ivy strangling the frame. The door was off its hinges. The air smelled of rot and old leaves. She stepped inside. Clara, someone whispered. She turned sharply. A woman stood behind a broken table, half concealed in shadow. Long grey hair, raincoat, eyes like knives. You don't know me, the woman said, but I was here when your brother died. I don't have a brother, Clara said automatically. Yes, you do, the woman said. Or you did, but they took him. What are you talking about? The woman stepped closer. Adam wasn't the first. Grange Hill has always been sick. Your mother helped keep it that way. Clara shook her head. You're insane. They called it the circle, the woman said. They worshipped something under the town, fed it memory, fed it grief. The stone was just one piece. Clara froze. The stone dot the visions. You've seen it, the woman said. You know I'm not lying. Clara didn't respond. The woman pulled something from her pocket. A black charm. the same one Adam had worn. He gave this to me, she whispered. Said if anything happened to him, I should find you. Clara reached for it, but the woman closed her hand around it. They'll come for me now, she said. They always do. Who? Before Clara could finish, the woman turned and fled out the back of the greenhouse, disappearing into the woods like smoke. Clara chased her, but by the time she reached the clearing, the woman was gone. Just silence, and then sirens a moment later. A sheriff's cruiser tore up the old road and skidded to a stop behind her car. 2 deputies got out, ma'am. Hands where we can see them. Clara froze. What is this? We got a call about a break-in. Someone said you were trespassing. Clara raised her hands. I didn't break in. It's abandoned. One deputy approached. Do you have ID? She handed it over. The man looked it over, then radioed something she couldn't hear. The other deputy stepped around the car and opened her trunk without asking. Hey, she shouted. He held up the manila folder. Ma'am, is this yours? Yes. He opened. It flipped through the pages, looked at her. You're digging into Adam Blake. She met his gaze. I was his girlfriend. The first deputy looked up from the radio. Sheriff wants her brought in. For what? Clara asked. Just some questions. They didn't cuff her, but they didn't give her a choice. The cruiser smelled of coffee and sweat and something metallic. At the station, they led her to a small room, 1 table, 2 chairs. A camera in the corner with a blinking red light. She waited for 10 minutes. Then the door opened and Sheriff Lee walked in. He was older now, balding, heavier, but she recognized him immediately. He'd been the deputy on scene the night Adam died. He didn't smile. Clara Jensen, he said. Didn't expect to see you back in Grange Hill. I'm here because someone sent me a letter, she said. A letter in Adam's handwriting. Lee raised an eyebrow. You saying he wrote you a note 20 years after he died? She didn't answer. He sat down, folded his hands. You always had questions, didn't you? You closed the case. In 48 hours, she snapped. Said it was suicide. But the autopsy didn't line up. Lee's eyes narrowed. What exactly are you accusing me of? Clara leaned forward. I think you knew about the stone, about the place under the woods. I think you helped cover it up. Lee smiled then, but it didn't reach his eyes. You've been talking to Helen, he said. Clara blinked. The woman at the greenhouse. She used to be a school teacher, Lee said, back in the 80s, real bright, until her daughter vanished. After that, she started saying things, hearing things. We tried to help her, but she disappeared for a while, lived in the woods, said the town was haunted. She said my mother was involved. Lee looked at her carefully. Your mother's a good woman, gave a lot to this town. You should be careful what you say. Did she come here after Adam died? Lee didn't answer. I have a receipt, Clara said. From this hotel, a week after the funeral. Still silence. She came here, Clara said. She knew something. Lee stood slowly. You should leave town, he said. Tonight. That's not an answer. No, he said. It's a warning. Then he left. They let her go 10 minutes later. No charges, no apology, just a cold silence as she walked back to her car, inside. Another envelope waited on the seat. No postmark, just a single photo. Adam, Caleb, and a third person standing in front of the hatch in the woods. The third person, Eleanor Jensen, to her mother, smiling. The photo sat in her lap like a weight. She couldn't stop staring at it. Her mother, Adam, and Caleb all standing together in front of the hatched door she'd only just learned about days ago. All three smiling like this wasn't something dangerous, like it was some summer memory, not a doorway to a buried nightmare. The photo was dated June 5th, 2003, 6 weeks before Adam died. Her mother had lied, not just about the hotel receipt, not just about the past. She had been involved. She'd been there. Clara started the car and drove. The road back to Sacramento felt longer than she remembered, like every mile was stitched with questions she couldn't yet answer. By the time she pulled into the driveway of her childhood home, the sun was beginning to dip behind the rooftops, casting long shadows across the pavement. Eleanor Jensen was on the front porch, watering the begonias in her navy blue cardigan, humming something low and tuneless. Clara got out and walked up the steps without speaking. Her mother looked up and smiled. "You're home early." Clara held up the photo like a knife. Eleanor's face changed instantly. The watering can stopped. Mid-air, double quotes. "Where did you get that? You tell me." Eleanor lowered the can. "That was a long time ago. You were there. You told me you barely knew Adam, that you never trusted the Blakes." "I didn't." "You were smiling," Clara hissed, "like it was all a game. What the hell is going on?" Her mother didn't answer. Clara stepped forward. "Did you go into the tunnel?" Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "You've been to Grange Hill." You didn't answer the question. Her mother looked past her, toward the street, as if watching for someone. Then she opened the front door. "Come inside," Clara followed. Her heartbeat was a hammer. In the kitchen, Eleanor poured 2 cups of tea like it was just another evening. Clara didn't touch hers. "I want the truth," she said. Eleanor sat across from her. Her hands were calm, but Clara noticed the slight tremble at the corner of her mouth. "I didn't know what it was. At first," her mother began, "the hatch, the stone. I thought it was just an old story, something the Blakes passed down. But you went there." "Yes, the summer before Adam died. Caleb invited me, said he wanted to show me something. I went because I was afraid for you." Clara frowned. Afraid of what? Her mother looked down at her tea. "He was changing," she said. "Adam. He was seeing things. Waking up in the middle of the night, screaming. He told you it was nothing, but I could see it in his eyes. Something was wrong." Clara's throat tightened. "He was terrified, and you thought showing him to a buried cave was the solution?" "I thought maybe it would help him face whatever it was." Clara slammed the photo on the table. "You stood in front of a door to something ancient and unknown, and you smiled." Eleanor flinched. "You don't understand," she said softly. "The stone, it doesn't just show you the past, it changes it." "What?" "If you carry enough grief, if you're broken in the right way, it doesn't just reflect, it reaches, it rewrites." Adam thought he could use it to erase something. He wouldn't say what. Clara felt dizzy. He wanted to erase something. Her mother nodded. "The past, a choice. Maybe a mistake. I don't know. But after he touched it, something was different." Clara stood. "So you just let him? You let him keep going back?" "I tried to stop him," Eleanor whispered. "I begged him to stop. But he said he had to do one last thing. He said he was going to leave something behind for you." Clara froze. "What?" Her mother's eyes were full now. "A memory, a trail, so you'd find him, even if everything else was gone." "The letters," The photos. Skybird. She thought of the vision she saw in the tunnel, the words Adam had whispered in her memory. Not everything drowns. I never wanted to lie to you, Eleanor said. But when he died, I thought, maybe it was better you didn't know. Maybe it would hurt less. Clara stepped back. You lied to me for 22 years. Her mother didn't respond. Where is Caleb? Clara asked suddenly. You knew he was in danger. Why didn't you warn him? Eleanor looked confused. What do you mean, he's missing? Her mother's face paled. That's not possible. Someone left a photo of him through a scope, and now he's gone. Eleanor stood shakily. You need to listen to me, Clara. There are people, old families in Grange Hill, people who've kept the circle going. Clara's blood chilled. I thought you said it was gone. It never goes. They just hide it better now. They moved the stone once, tried to bury it deeper, but it always comes back. A memory surfaced, the black stone, the chill in her fingertips when she touched it. Who's behind this? Clara demanded. I don't know their names, Eleanor said, but I know what they want. What? To erase everything. Before Clara could respond, the front door slammed open. 2 men in suits entered. No badges, no introductions, just cold eyes. Miss Jensen, one said, we need you to come with us. Who the hell are you? Clara snapped. We're with the Department of Land Conservation, the other said flatly. Clara snorted. Try harder. They stepped forward. Eleanor blocked their path. She's not going anywhere. One man pulled a small black device. From his jacket, pressed it. A sharp buzz rang out. Eleanor winced, staggered back. The man grabbed Clara's arm. Clara screamed and kicked. The second man caught her wrist and twisted. Pain bloomed. They dragged her through the door and into a black SUV parked out front. Neighbors stared. No one moved. Inside, Clara's hands were zipped. Her mouth gagged. The last thing she saw before the car peeled away was her mother standing on the porch, clutching her side, eyes full of rage and sorrow. They drove north. Fast on hour passed. Then 2 mountains replaced suburbs. The sky darkened. Finally, they turned down a gravel road she didn't recognize. The SUV stopped in front of a gated compound. Brick walls, barbed wire, no signs. Inside, the halls were sterile. Fluorescent lights buzzed above. They led her down 3 corridors and into a small white room, unbound, ungagged, alone. She sat in silence. Then the door opened. A woman entered. Late 50s, tall, clean-cut, a clipboard in her hands. Clara Jensen, she said. My name is Director Shaw. Clara didn't respond. I imagine you have questions. Clara glared. You abducted me. We detained you for your protection. Where is Caleb Blake? Director Shaw flipped a page. You mean Subject 12? Clara stood. He's not a subject. He's a person. Shaw nodded once. He was recovered from the perimeter of the Grange Hill site this morning. He's safe. I want to see him. In time, Shaw said. But first, we need to talk about what you touched. Clara froze. Shaw set the clipboard down. The object under Grange Hill is one of several discovered across the continent. We call them anchors. Clara frowned. Anchors. They stabilize memory, reality, time. Each anchor was once worshipped, buried, lost, then rediscovered. They're not of this world. Not entirely. Clara sat slowly. The one under Grange Hill is unique, Shaw continued. It responds to trauma, deep, unresolved grief. It uses memory as a doorway. A doorway to what? Shaw met her eyes. To an alternate version of your own life. Clara's breath caught. That's what Adam saw, she said softly. Shaw nodded. He tried to rewrite something. It failed. There are consequences to crossing between memory and reality. Consequences he didn't understand. What happened to him? Shaw picked up a different folder, slid it across the table. Clara opened it. Inside, a report. July 18, 2003. Subject 6. Adam Blake. Exposure level. Critical outcome. Psychological collapse. Memory fracture. Dissolution risk elevated. Clara stared at the words. Your mother tried to protect him, Shaw said. She pleaded for help. But by then, he'd already started disappearing. Clara looked up sharply. Disappearing. In certain cases, overexposure leads to erosion. The subject forgets themselves. And eventually, others forget them, too. Their existence phrase. Tears burned her eyes. He was afraid, Clara whispered. Afraid he'd hurt me if he stayed. Shaw didn't speak. Clara swallowed. Why bring me here? Shaw hesitated. Because you touched it, too. And unlike Adam, it remembers you. What does that mean? We don't know yet. She stood. But we're going to find out. The road to the harrowed path didn't appear on any map. But it was there, buried behind a curtain of sycamores, just beyond the collapsed church on South Ridge. Clara had to park half a mile away and hike the rest. She moved quickly, clutching her father's journal like a compass. The woods were denser than she remembered, the canopy blocking what little morning light crept through the clouds. Every crack of a branch beneath her boots echoed too loudly. Every bird call made her spine twitch, according to the journal. The trail had once been used by the town's founders, the first congregation of the circle when they performed. A ritual called the Remembrance Rite, a secret procession that began at dusk and ended. Underground, the path itself was named after a phrase found carved into the walls of a sealed chamber. Walk the harrowed, forget the hollow. Whatever that meant, her father had circled it in red ink. Twice she found the trailhead where the journal said it would be, obscured behind a fallen stone cross from the church graveyard. The dirt was dry, but the air was heavy, still, like the trees were holding their breath. She stepped onto the trail. It was narrower than she expected, barely wide enough for one person, winding like a scar through the underbrush. Her boots crunched dead leaves and snapped twigs as she went, the silence growing thicker with every step. After 15 minutes, she reached the fork. Just like the journal said, one path curved toward an old quarry, the decoy. The other dipped down sharply into a ravine shadowed by boulders and thorn brush. That was the real one, the harrowed path. She took a breath and descended. The air changed quickly. The temperature dropped. The sky vanished behind thick limbs, and soon all sound disappeared. No birds, no breeze, nothing, just her breathing. She walked for nearly half an hour before the trees gave way to a clearing. There at the far edge was a stone archway carved into the cliffside, half buried in ivy, almost camouflaged. Her stomach twisted. She approached slowly at the top of the arch. Weathered by rain and time was the same spiral with a Nanai symbol from the pedestal. Below it, the words, "The price of remembering is that you never forget." The door was iron, sealed, but her father had noted the trick. a hollowed rock 2 feet to the left of the arch. Inside it, a rusted lever. She pulled it. The ground groaned. The door creaked open. Beyond it, darkness, cold and wet. She stepped inside. The corridor sloped down in a spiral, slick stone underfoot. It smelled like damp roots and mold. Her flashlight beam bounced across walls, marked with more symbols. Some familiar, others not. Then the hallway ended. She stepped into a chamber. It was massive, round, lined with columns. And at the center, a pool, still, black, bottomless. But what struck her most were the walls. Dozens of them. Floor-to-ceiling alcoves filled with small wooden boxes. Memory vaults, each labeled, each marked with a date. She stepped closer. May 4, 1979, Jonathan L. August 12, 1993, Amy F. July 18, 2003, Adam B. Her hand flew to her mouth. She reached for the box marked Adam's name. It slid out easily. Light, dusty, inside. A folded drawing, Skybird 3, the same plane Adam used to sketch when they were kids. Only this version was different. It had no cockpit, no wings, just the name written beneath in frantic pen. They clipped me. Her hand trembled. Under the drawing, a cassette tape. No label. Just a TIMESTAMP. She shoved it in her bag and turned to search for more. That's when she heard it, footsteps above coming. Down the spiral, she switched off the flashlight and ducked behind a column. The footsteps were slow, deliberate, then voices. Keep your light low. I told you she'd come here. They always do after the 5th envelope. Clara held her breath. A flashlight. Beams swept the far side of the chamber. Then a figure appeared at the arch. Tall, hooded, holding something. Metallic. Not a flashlight. A gun. Clara's blood ran cold. A second figure followed. This one smaller. Female. Masked. She must have found the Blake boys box. We can't let her leave. Clara edged behind the column, slipping further into the shadows. She gripped her father's journal with one hand and her phone with the other. She turned the volume all the way down, then began typing a text dot to Caleb. If a live, harrowed path, it's real. 2 of them here, armed. She hit send. No signal. Of course. The female voice called out, "You know we see you, Clara. There's only one way in and one way out." She didn't respond. The male voice was closer now. "Come out. We just want to talk." She crouched, heart hammering. Then she saw it, an exit. Not a real one, but a crack in the wall behind. One of the vault alcoves, narrow, hidden. She slipped toward it, quietly, carefully. The stone cut her shoulder as she slid through, but she didn't stop. Behind the wall, the passage continued, a natural tunnel, rough and winding. Her flashlight beam wavered as she ran, ducking roots and brushing past cobwebs. She heard shouting behind her, then gunfire, sparks erupted off the rock inches from her head. She kept running. The tunnel angled upward. Then she saw light, a sliver of sky through a grate. She slammed her shoulder against it once. Twice it burst open, and she tumbled out onto soft pine needles behind the church ruins. She lay there, gasping. No one followed, not yet. She ran for the car. 30 minutes later, she was back at the motel, drenched and shivering. She locked the door, shoved a chair against it, and collapsed on the floor. Then she remembered the cassette. She rummaged through her bag, pulled it out, and searched for her old micro-recorder. the one she used during nursing lectures. It still worked. She hit play at first. Static, then Adam's voice, tired, flat, almost numb. If they find this, they'll erase it. Or me, or both. But I have to say it. A pause. They're not just protecting the stone, they're feeding it. Every time someone touches it, it takes something, a memory, a truth, and it buries it here. In that vault, another pause. Then, a crackling breath. They used it on me. After I saw the file. After I asked questions. I don't remember what I knew. Only that I knew too much. His voice dropped to a whisper. If Clara finds this, tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I didn't mean to forget her. That I tried to hold onto her face, but they took it. The tape cut out. Clara sat frozen. They'd wiped his memory, used the stone to strip it away. She felt the burn in her throat, the pressure behind her eyes, but she didn't cry. She couldn't. Instead, she turned to the journal again and found what she was looking for, a list of names, people her father believed were part of the circle. One stood out, Sheriff Leonard Lee. She underlined it in red. Then she underlined ANOTHER, Dr. Elizabeth Rourke, her childhood doctor, and one more, Principal Garvey. All still alive, all still in Grange. Hill. She flipped to the next page. A phrase was scrawled across it in her father's furious handwriting. The recall is scheduled, September 3rd. That was 10 days away. Clara's hands shook. Whatever this recall was, Adam had died days before the last one. She wasn't going to let that happen again. Not this time. She opened her laptop, typed out an email. Subject, urgent, Grange Hill. Death Cult 2. Sacramento Tribune, investigations, desk body. My name is Clara Jensen. I believe I've uncovered evidence of a decades-long cover-up involving ritual memory manipulation, disappearances, and staged suicides tied to a secret group operating in Grange Hill, California. Please contact me ASAP. I have names, recordings, and locations. If I don't respond again, assume I've been silenced. She attached the Adam tape, then hit send. She wasn't going to die in silence. The next morning, she found a single slip of paper under her motel door. You can't stop the recall, but you can join it. On the back, a time, a location, a name. September 2nd, Warden's Hollow. Midnight, bring nothing but memory. She folded it slowly. Her pulse had steadied. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was ready. She didn't sleep the night before the recall. Instead, Clara sat in her car, parked beneath the half-dead maple tree on the outskirts of Grange Hill, staring at the folded slip of paper like it was a map to her own undoing. September 2nd, Warden's Hollow. Midnight, bring nothing but memory. Warden's Hollow wasn't on any official record, but her father had written about it. A depression in the earth behind the Blake family's northern woods, where old rites were held long before the town had a name. It had been used for rituals, secret burnings, and according to one of his entries, one failed purification in 1974. She dressed in black. No bag, no flashlight, no ID. Only the tiny recorder tucked into the seam of her coat, and a piece of red thread wrapped around her wrist. One of Adam's old tricks for holding on to thoughts you weren't ready to speak. At 11:37 p.m., she left the motel. By 11:58, she'd parked a quarter mile from the woods. And at 12 o'clock on the dot, she stood at the edge of Warden's Hollow. Hidden in the trees, her breath hitching in her chest, They were already there, dozens of them, maybe more, all dressed in long coats or robes, standing in a perfect ring around. The hollow, a bowl-shaped pit in the forest floor, encircled with stones. A fire crackled at the center. Its light was low, almost blue, and behind the fire stood Sheriff Lee. His face was pale and calm, lit from below like a villain from some ancient fable. To his right, Dr. Rourke. To his left, Principal Garvey. All of them silent, watching one by one. Others began stepping forward. They carried boxes, small wooden vaults, like the ones Clara had seen in the underground chamber. Each person placed theirs at the fire's edge. Lee spoke. Tonight, we honor memory, not for what it gives, but for what it takes. We surrender our grief. We recall the weight we've hidden, and we let the hollow carry it. Clara stepped closer. She recognized faces now. Mrs. Yates, who used to teach 3rd grade. Joe Duncan, who ran the gas station. Even Pastor Ray, who had performed Adam's funeral sermon. All standing in silence, waiting for their turn. Lee gestured. Dr. Rourke stepped forward, holding her vault. I surrender the day, she screamed, she said. And the silence after. She opened the box and tipped it into the fire. Blue. Flames surged. Gasps echoed in the circle, not from pain, but from relief. Clara's stomach twisted. These weren't memories they were sharing. These were memories they were giving up. One by one, more followed. I surrender the door I never opened. I surrender the girl I watched drown. I surrender the child I named and then forgot. More flames, more vaults, more hollow faces. Then Sheriff Lee stepped forward. He held no box. Instead, he raised his hand and pointed straight at Clara. We have a guest tonight, he said. One who came uninvited. One who carries a memory not meant to survive. Dozens of heads turned. Clara stepped out of the trees. I brought no vault, she said. Then you brought your burden, Lee replied. She looked around the circle. You all gave up pieces of yourselves to stay clean. But none of you are. Dr. Rourke frowned. You don't understand. The hollow is mercy. You fed it, my brother. Gasps. But no denials. Principal Garvey stepped forward. Adam Blake entered by choice. You cornered him, Clara said. You wiped him, and then you buried. What was left? Lee didn't flinch. He tried to hold on to something, Clara said. Me, but you couldn't let that stay, so you erased it. He was dangerous, Rourke said quietly. He remembered things he was never meant to see. Clara reached into her coat, pulled out the recorder. I brought a memory. She pressed play. Adam's voice poured into the clearing. If they find this, tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I didn't mean to forget her. Faces shifted. Some flinched. Others looked down. You can't burn that, Clara said. You can't throw it into the fire and forget, because I remember. And now, so will they. She pointed to the woods behind her, where flashing red lights now pulsed between the trees. Backup, not. From local police, from the Tribune. She had sent them everything, the tape, the list of names, the secret sites, and they had come. Reporters, cameras, lights. The circle froze. For the first time, Clara saw fear in Sheriff Lee's eyes. The fire flickered. People backed away. Some ran. Others just stood, silent and stunned, as the illusion crumbled. Later that night, the headlines would break. Grange Hill Secret Society linked to disappearances. Memory alteration cult FBI investigates hidden ritual site beneath California. Town daughter exposes mother's involvement in cover-up of 2003 death, but in that moment, all Clara could do was breathe. It was over, almost. 2 days later, she sat at the edge of Hidden Lake, watching the skybird kites flutter in the breeze. The town had changed. Investigations were underway. Several members of the circle had fled. Others were cooperating. Sheriff Lee was in custody. So was Dr. Rourke. Her mother hadn't been arrested, not yet. But Clara hadn't spoken to her since. She didn't know if she ever would again. Caleb was safe. The FBI had found him in a storage chamber beneath the original Blake cabin, unconscious but alive, malnourished, sedated. He remembered pieces. Enough. He and Clara had talked for hours about Adam, about the past, about what they'd both lost and tried to save. They agreed on one thing. The hollow was real, and it wasn't done. Even after the people were gone, even after the vaults were sealed, the ground still breathed. The stone still pulsed. It had taken too much to simply vanish. And one night, weeks later, Clara found herself standing back. At the entrance to the tunnel, the hatch had been sealed by federal agents. Concrete poured over the spiral. Steel plates bolted into the earth. But still, she felt it. She whispered a name. Not hers, not Adam's. The hollow didn't answer. But something in her bones shifted, like a weight that would never fully leave. She walked away, not lighter, but more whole. The nightmares returned first, not in pieces like before, not in flickers or fragments, but in full, lucid detail, as if they weren't dreams at all. It started 3 weeks after the tunnel was sealed. Clara woke at 2:11 a.m., soaked in sweat, heart galloping, a scream trapped behind her teeth. In the dream, she had been walking the tunnel again, but this time she wasn't alone. She could feel the presence behind her, not chasing, not breathing, just watching. And then, in the distance, the sound, not footsteps, not voices, but breathing. Thousands of voices, breathing in unison, the air thick with memory. She reached. The pedestal, the stone, wasn't there. Instead, it was inside her chest. Beating in place of her heart, she woke, gasping. The next morning, she found something strange. A stone, black, smooth, sitting on her front porch. Impossible. The tunnel had been sealed, the hollow locked, the stone destroyed, hadn't it? She didn't touch it. Instead, she placed it in a sealed box and took it to Caleb. He was living 2 towns over now, renting a room above a mechanic's shop. He didn't want to return to Grange Hill. Not yet. Maybe not ever. He stared at the box for a long time before opening it. When he saw the stone, he didn't speak. He just stood, walked to the sink, and vomited. "It's not the same," he said after a while, voice shaking. "It's a copy." Clara frowned. "A copy." Caleb nodded. "The original was too old, too heavy. But this is recent. Someone made this. Why?" He looked at her to restart it. They sat in silence. Outside, rain began to fall. Caleb spoke first. "You remember what your mother said? That the stone doesn't just show the past. It reaches for it." Clara nodded slowly. "What if the hollow doesn't need the original anymore?" he said. "What if it's infected enough people, enough minds, that it can grow on its own?" Clara stared at the copy, like a virus or a seed. Later, that evening, she checked her inbox. There was a single email from an address she didn't recognize. Subject: I remember you. Body: you don't know me, but you came to Warden's Hollow. I didn't speak then. I was afraid. But I remember what you said. I remember my sister. They took her in '92. I remember her now. Her name was Lydia. You gave her back to me. Thank you. But there are others who want her forgotten again. They're rebuilding quietly. If I disappear, remember this. Not everything drowns. Attached, a photo of a building, not a church, not a tunnel, a school, Grange Hill Academy, under renovation, new owners, new funding. The photo had been taken 3 days ago. Clara stared at it, at the front steps, at the spiral carved into the new stonework beside the door. The hollow was coming back, but this time it was wearing a new face. Education, growth, therapy. She picked up her phone and called Caleb. We're going back. He didn't hesitate. Tell me when. They arrived 3 days later. The town had changed again. No FBI vans, no reporters, just construction crews and neatly printed banners hanging from the newly whitewashed walls. Grange Hill Academy, opening. Fall 2025, a new path begins here. They parked down the block and approached on foot. No fences, no guards, but something felt wrong, too quiet, too clean, like the place had been scrubbed, not just of dirt, but of memory. Clara spotted it first, the eye within a spiral symbol, carved faintly into the base of the flagpole. Not obvious, but intentional. They moved quickly, circling the building at the rear. They found a service entrance unlocked inside. The building smelled of fresh paint and something else, something musty and familiar. Stone. They passed empty classrooms, dusty bookshelves, and freshly hung motivational posters. Our past is just a draft of who we can be. You are safe here. Your thoughts are welcome. Your memories optional. Clara's stomach twisted. Down the hall. They found a stairwell at the bottom, a door. No handle, no signage, just a black circle painted dead center. They pushed it. Opened beyond it. Another tunnel, cold, wet, real. The hollow had moved. The anchor had not died. It had spread. Clara pulled out her recorder, began documenting. We're beneath the new Grange Hill Academy. We've entered what appears to be an unmarked passage. She stopped. Voices, ahead. Faint. Echoing, not speaking, chanting. They moved quickly. Carefully, the tunnel opened into a wide stone room, smaller than the original chamber, but unmistakably part of the same design. At the center stood a new pedestal, and on it the copy. It glowed faintly. Not with light, with heat. Around it, 5 people stood in a circle. Hands clasped. Among them, Dr. Rourke. She was supposed to be in custody. Caleb's hand tightened around Clara's. We end it, he whispered. Before she could move, someone stepped into the room behind them. A child, no older than 10. Clara turned. The boy looked up at her with wide, knowing eyes. You don't belong here, he said softly. I'm trying to stop them, she said. He looked at her for a long time, then nodded and stepped past her into the chamber. Dr. Rourke turned and saw him. Her face changed. Daniel, she said. Not now. You shouldn't. The boy reached out and touched the stone. The room convulsed. The air bent inward. Memory spilled across the floor like smoke. Clara staggered. Images poured into her skull. The first vault being built. Adam crying. Behind the Blake cabin. her mother's hand trembling over the match, the original stone being passed from hand to hand over centuries, and one final flash, a girl standing alone in a field, whispering, "You promised he'd forget." Then silence. The light went out, the stone dimmed, the pedestal cracked. Dr. Rourke screamed. The boy collapsed. Clara ran to him. Daniel. His eyes fluttered. He smiled faintly. "I remembered too much," he whispered. Then his body fell limp. Gone. Clara looked at the stone. It was crumbling, disintegrating. Whatever had lived inside it, memory, poison, power, was dying. For real this time. Caleb pulled her back. The walls trembled. Cracks split the floor. They ran. The chamber collapsed behind them. Outside, the air smelled of rain. The banner was flapping in the wind. Clara turned back once, just once, and saw a single red thread floating down through the sky. Adam's trick. He had left one last trail, and it had brought them here. The sky opened before sunrise, not with thunder, not with light, but with silence, the kind of deep, aching stillness that comes after something ancient dies. Clara stood at the edge of the field behind the ruined academy, watching the last of the structure collapse inward. The ground no longer trembled, but the ache was still in her bones, a buzzing in her teeth, a whisper behind her left ear that stopped the second she tried to listen. Caleb sat nearby, his back against a tree, watching the sky like he expected it to start bleeding. Neither of them had spoken since the boy Daniel collapsed. He had no ID, no family came forward, no school records, no trace. He simply vanished, as if the hollow had never let him fully exist in the first place. Or maybe he'd been the hollow's way out. The news broke the next morning. Local tragedy. Grange Hill Academy collapses during renovation. Authorities investigate links to cult activity. Memory experimentation officials deny claims of cognitive weapon. Found beneath school, but Clara already knew what the reports would say. Another accident. Another conspiracy waved off by men in suits, who buried the truth deeper than the stone ever had. But it didn't matter. Now the vaults were gone. The stone was Ashdod, and her memory remained. She had thought that would be the end, but she was wrong. It came back in flashes. A week later, in her sleep, she saw her childhood bedroom exactly as it had been in 1996. She saw Adam at the foot of her bed, whispering, "Don't forget the swing." She hadn't thought about the swing set in years. The red one in their old backyard, torn down after the funeral, after her mother couldn't stand the sight of it. The next day, Clara drove to the old house. The backyard was overgrown now, vines wrapped around the fence. The garage door hung, crooked, but there, half buried in the weeds, was the rusted base of the swing set. She dropped to her knees and dug. The earth was soft, 3 inches down. She found it, a tin box. Inside, a drawing, Skybird 3. Only this one had both wings and a cockpit. A co-pilot's seat beneath it. In Adam's unmistakable handwriting. If she remembers, she'll find this. If she doesn't, maybe it's better she forgets. But I believe she will. Clara sat there for a long time, holding the note to her chest. Her father had tried to forget. Her mother had tried to hide. Caleb had tried to run, but Adam had left. BREADCRUMBS. And she had followed every one. Weeks passed, then months. Investigations dragged on. A special task force was formed. Property seized. names indicted, others disappeared. The town of Grange Hill shrunk to a whisper, the kind you hear in a dream just before you wake up. Clara moved back to Sacramento. She returned to nursing, day shifts only. Her patients noticed she had a way of remembering little things, stories they told once, a photo they kept hidden in a wallet, the name of a childhood pet mentioned offhand during an IV change. She said nothing about the hollow, but sometimes, when the lights dimmed and the halls fell quiet, she felt it flickering at the edge of her thoughts. Then, in late November, a letter arrived. No return address, just her name, this time in a child's handwriting. Inside, a photograph, Clara and Adam sitting on the lake dock, their feet dangling over the edge. She didn't remember this one being taken. On the back, "Not everything drowns. See." She stared at it for a long time. She didn't know who C was. Caleb denied sending it. Her mother, still under legal scrutiny, hadn't spoken to her in months. But the message wasn't about the sender. It was about what remained. And what remained was her. One night, just before Christmas, she visited the field again. Warden's Hollow had been filled in with concrete and warning signs. But she didn't walk to the pit. She sat, instead, under the tree where she and Adam once carved their names into the bark. The scars were still there. She reached into her coat pocket and took out the last red thread Adam had tied around her wrist before the accident. Faded now, almost pink. She tied it around the tree. Then whispered, "I remember." For the first time in months, the wind shifted, soft, cold, familiar. It wrapped around her like a memory you didn't want to escape. And she knew, without question, that he heard her. Maybe not in the way living people do, but in the way memory does. The kind that chooses not to fade. Not everything drowns. Some things float, and some things, the ones tied to pain, to love, to unfinished promises, never truly let go. They wait, they remember, and when you're ready, they bring you home.